Today. My name's Steve Murray. I am the publisher of Positive Aging Sourcebook, and I'm just serving as the voice from behind the curtain and helping this wonderful group run this discussion today. And before I bring on your hosts, I just want to give you a little bit of housekeeping. First is that we we've got a bunch of people attending this event today, and you can communicate with them. And the best way to communicate with them is via chat. So the other attendees in the audience, if you feel like introducing yourself, feel free to drop your name, maybe where you're from, any challenges that you're facing into chat. And just make sure you use that drop-down menu that says all panelists and attendees. Now, the other thing we want is to make this a lively, interactive discussion. And the way we can do that is by answering your questions or responding to your comments. And you can do that one of two ways. You can type your questions in at any point in time during the discussion using that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Or when we open things up, you could raise your virtual hand and we could bring you on. Don't worry if your hair and makeup isn't perfect, because we're just going to hear your voice. And with that, let's meet our hosts, and that is Cele and Jan. Hey.
Hey, Steve.
Well, thanks for including me in this program. I'm really delighted to hear this wonderful panel that you've got talking about downsizing, moving, and organizing. So I'm going to drop behind the curtain here, and you guys just shout my name if you need me, but I'm really looking forward to buckling in and hearing a great discussion today.
All right, thank you, Steve. Steve is downplaying his role here. If those of you who are participating today, and thank you for coming, if you have not taken part in some of Steve Gurney's webinars that he gives each week, several each week, you are really missing out. There have been some phenomenal topics. If you would like to get on his email list, Steve, I think, does about 3 or 4 each week on, any topic that has to do with health matters and fitness and paperwork and elder law and estate planning. So many things that impact people of a certain age, our group, and you're really missing out. So I encourage you to really check out what Steve is offering. He knows everyone. He's very well connected, and he's just a wealth of information. So thank you, Steve. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. At Home in Alexandria loves it when we partner with our sister village down the Parkway, Mount Vernon at Home. So my sidekick, Jan Buchanan, is here as well. And we're really excited to tackle this topic. It's been a little time since we talked about it. Right before the pandemic shut us all down, our village did a workshop in Beatley Library where the panelists we're going to hear from today were part of, and we're bringing the band back together. Not everyone, but a lot of the folks at that panel discussion are here today because there's just so much that can be said about this process of maintaining a serene and peaceful household that is always packed full of our things, our paper. It's a continual, let's just say it, battle that we all have with our. So let's just talk it out and find some tips and strategies. What we're going to do is Jan and I will be watching the chat room, the raised hand, and the questions. We also have some questions that we took in advance. So we've got some ready to roll questions. And so before I go ahead and introduce our panelists, I want to just turn it over to Jan briefly just to say hello, and then we'll get rolling.
Thanks, Cele. So I'm Jan Buchanan, and I'm the Executive Director of Mount Vernon at Home. We are a sister village with Cele at Home in Alexandria. Cele covers the Alexandria City region, and we are South County. So we're down the Route 1 corridor along the river and in those beautiful neighborhoods where I see so many of our members here today. So I wanted to welcome all of our village members from both our villages and those who've come to us from outside the village. And I think that, you know, we'd be remiss not to give a little bit of a plug for the villages and the benefits of membership in being able to bring events such as this to you all, to really be a guide, a resource, and a pivot for our membership and our community to help people, of course, age wonderfully and thrivingly and energetically and safely at home. That's the mission of our organizations, and we do that. We've done that through the pandemic, and we continue to do that as we start to bring people together in person. But events like this, with being able to use Zoom, we know that this is here to stay. It's a lot easier to just turn on your computer and come here instead of trying to schlep out to someplace. So Cele and I talked about this event quite a bit. Our members talked to us about this quite a bit. I kind of coined the phrase Staysizing because we want to encourage people to stay in their homes, right? This is what we're all about. So it's downsizing perhaps. And that's why we've got some of our experts here who help do that kind of transition work. But we also want to just help you clear your home and make it more livable. So I call it Staysizing. And like Cele and all of us too, I do it all the time, clearing spaces. So I'm really excited to learn more today and really excited about the panel of experts that we have to bring to you all. I wanted to tell you too that this meeting is being recorded. Some of our members aren't able to make it, and if you miss something, we will be able to send you this link, as well as some of the resources. I did want to say one more thing about Steve, that he publishes a paper volume called the Pro-Aging Sourcebook, and it has every kind of resource you could possibly want in not only transition management, but continuing communities. Villages are profiled in these directories. So I wanted to give another plug for that too. So lots of questions. We can do you live questions. We can do the chat function, or the Q&A we'll be watching. So thanks so much, Cele, and we're ready to go.
Great. And I totally stole that term Staysizing from you, Jan, because a lot of our members, they're already in their forever home, and they're just trying to make it the best, the safest, and most pleasant place and workable space that they can. So we're all trying to do the same thing. And I want to take a minute now to introduce our panelists. One quick important note: one of our panelists could not make it. Lori James from Rarity Auctions. She's a powerhouse and a very busy lady. She's got some great tips for us, but we will have to bring her on another time. And we got plenty to cover with the three panelists we have. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to put your good-looking faces on the screen so I can introduce you properly. And we have Karen Gardner with Simplify for Life, who is a professional organizer here in the area. Karen has worked, I can tell you, she has helped 6 or 7 people I know personally. Some are just people I know in the community, and others are members of AHA. And she's just really got a nice way of work. She's not pushy. She's just got the right temperament and demeanor for this kind of work. It's sensitive, right? We're going through our things, our personal things that have been part of our lives for a long time. You're sharing a part of yourself with the person who's helping you through the process. She's so perfectly suited for this work. So she is one of our panelists. She works out of the Belhaven area, so she can serve really the larger Northern Virginia area. I think, Karen, some of your clients are up in McLean too, so far away, right?
Right. I'm Maryland and DC.
I didn't realize. Okay.
Primarily Virginia. Yeah.
Gotcha. And we have Maria Spatelnik with Conquer the Clutter. I should add that Maria and Karen both are members of NAPO. Tell me what that stands for again, one of you. The
National Association of Productivity and Organizing Consultants.
Okay, I'm glad I asked you to do that. Maria can take a deeper dive into some real difficult cases. Maria can do your basic organizing, but there are many situations that call for a higher level of dismantling. I guess I'm just going to use that term. Maria has deep experience working with hoarding, with the most extreme cases and everything in between. So there's nothing that she hasn't seen. There's nothing you could throw at her that would shock her. And she, I think, brings an important element, which is the psychology behind the collecting of our belongings and the difficulty we have in letting go. And she's got a whole team that's trained to work with people on this quite sensitive area. So thank you for being here, Maria.
You're welcome.
And Pierre Crouch with Crouch Realty Group of McInerney Associates. Pete happens to be a sponsor of our village as well as at home, and he's also one of our most valuable volunteers. And I don't say that lightly, because all of our volunteers, of course, are valuable, every last one of them. But there are certain skills that Pete brings to the table as a volunteer that I just feel that I have to point out. We have a lot of women who are widowed or living alone, and they need work, maintenance done on their homes. And there's a certain vulnerability that you feel, perhaps, if you're not a construction professional and you're bringing people into your home to give you bids and to talk about what you need done. And let's just be honest, there are some bad actors out there taking advantage of older women living alone. So one of the things that people do for us and has done for our members is he'll be right there with you at your home when you bring your contractor in to talk about the bid and what needs to be done. And he'll play the role of your adult son and make sure that, you know, that your member doesn't get taken to the cleaners. There's just a peace of mind that comes with that. And so Pete is happy to do that for our members. He's also the one who will come in and assess a situation, maybe a dripping faucet or something, to see if it really needs a professional or whether it's something that could be done by one of our volunteers. So sometimes you just don't know if a problem you have is a little problem or a bigger problem. So I just have to give a shout out to Pete as one of our valuable volunteers. And let's face it, we're nonprofits. I am deeply grateful to Pete for the corporate support that he provides to our village. And I would guess that Jan would echo my sentiment there. So, but when we get into the nuts and bolts, I'm going to ask each of you, when I call upon you, to give a better biography than I just did, because mine was just more personal and yours will be more helpful. So we didn't sort out what order we were going to go in. Shall we do Karen, Maria, Pete? Does that sound all right?
That works. Sure.
All right, you're on, Karen. And everyone, Karen Gardner with Simplify for Life.
Good morning, everybody. Steve, if you could pull up my few slides, that would be great. Well, I cannot believe I have been in the field for about 20 years, a little under 20 years, and I absolutely love it. I approach it from the project management standpoint because my prior life, I worked in association management, and I think I am a natural. I think like a project manager. I have a lot of project management experience, so I approach organizing that way by breaking down large projects into tasks, which can be very helpful no matter how small or how large the organizing project is. Something that I was not intentionally as busy during COVID because I couldn't be going into people's homes. So I did a lot of webinars, and I also added to my tool belt the Certified Aging in Place designation. That is a program many of you probably know through ARP and the Home Builders Association. So I'm finishing that up next week, and I think it's a nice complement to the kind of work that I do, because I've been asked casually, you know, what kind of changes can I make that could make my home safer? And now I feel like I have the information to back up what innately I felt like I could give advice. So my tagline is organizing and simplifying life so it can be lived more fully. And I truly, truly believe that no matter what it is that you do, if you're, an attorney, if you're a doctor, if you are a volunteer, if you're retired, we all want to be doing what we're doing in a full way. And I think organizing can provide the scaffolding to do so, especially aging in place safely, if that's the choice that, many people in this audience are choosing to do. There are ways to do it so that you feel safe and you can live the kind of life that you want. So the next slide, like, how do we go about doing that? So like I said, I've been doing this for about 20 years. And so as the cartoon says, if you think this is bad, you should see the inside of my head. Um, a lot of, if you live in a cluttered environment, naturally your mind is cluttered too. So how I approach organizing is the 3 Ps: plan, process, and perfect. I've had a lot of clients who hire me say, why are we doing all of this talking? I thought you'd dive right in and we'd start moving things around. And I always say to them, no matter what, even though we're just organizing your garage or we're, working on your kitchen, let's have a plan and put a plan in place um, so that we have the deadline. We know why you want to do it, and we know what we're going to do. And so that really comes into play the larger the project is. And I find some people don't really know where they want to start. So talking a lot and asking questions and putting together a tentative plan, and then as we start working together, the plan starts tightening up, is very, very helpful. So that's the first P. The second P is the organizing process. So that's the how. And, just to broad brush it, it's basically, sorting and categorizing. We all know that. And then a huge piece of organizing is the purging. And of course, that's the tough part of it. But it is doable. And I've worked with people like, no, there's no way I can get rid of any of these books. And lo and behold, through positive encouragement, they can cut the books in half. So it's sorting, categorizing, purging, and then you're left with what you want to organize. And that's where you assign where things are going to go, where they're going to be stored. And then you can talk about containers. So that's more at the end. And then the last P is perfect. And that's the one where I think a lot of people think, okay, I'm organized, I don't have to do it again. But it's something that it's a constant, and it's sort of the maintenance part of it that is, really key in it. But if you have a good system in place, the maintenance really streamlined, it can be pretty easy. So that is the process. And then I feel for this audience, where I could be of most help is I work with a lot of people on their paper. And what I have found is, a lot of people are procrastinators. I include myself in that. Steve, if you could just advance the next slide. Thank you. I have a package that I call the Map of Life. And in it, of course, are the really important documents, your will, medical directives and so forth. But then there's all the other stuff. Like if there was an emergency and someone had to pay your bills, how do you pay your bills? What are your passwords if someone you trust has to get into your computer? Having an inventory of your lockbox or your fireproof safe. So I call it Map of Life because you're creating a map of your life, including your online footprint if you have one. And then I have, right sizing to stay. Many of my clients, that is, they want to age in place. And then right sizing to move, which is, very similar, but a little more complicated. And the last one is the home safety assessment. which I'm going to be able to start offering to clients. So that is me. If you, I do offer complimentary consultations, and I do have a quarterly newsletter, and I have a blog. So if you have any questions and want to reach me afterwards, please don't hesitate.
Great. Thank you, Karen. That's interesting. You know, people, they think you're going to come in and you're going to be, y'all are going to create bags and bags that first time, right?
Yeah.
And you got to kind of start from, have a foundation first.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes sense. All right, Maria, you are next up. We'd love to hear from you and learn more about your business model.
Thanks. I just put my info in the chat. So I've got a little bit more age on me, both personally and business wise. I've been at this about 30 years, and I specialize in elders and severe levels of clutter, although I do the regular garage clean out or a closet or whatever. But for the most part, my clients are overwhelmed, overly tired, very confused, and usually have some sort of a time pressure. So they have to make some changes for somebody to come home from the hospital. They kids on their backs saying, if you don't take care of this right away, we're going to pull up a dumpster and throw everything away. That sort of a situation where there's a lot of stress. A lot of my clients have mental health issues like depression, anxiety, things like that. And we're one of the only companies around that will tackle a client with a mental health diagnosis. So that puts us in kind of a weird category. But we love our clients who don't have major issues too. They make for a nice vacation. So we kind of take a holistic approach as well as the way Karen does, with kind of looking at your entire life, because being cluttered is only one piece of who you are. We don't refer to clients as hoarders, for example, those that hoard, because that seems like that's the only thing that defines them. Whereas no, they're a wonderful mother, a great person in their community. They, are a wonderful spouse. They're an artist, they're whatever that they are. And this collecting problem that they have is only part of it. So, we're very non-judgmental. I've walked into houses where other people have turned up their noses and said, we can't help you, you're beyond help. We don't accept that as even an option. Everybody who needs help deserves it. Even some people who don't know that they need help. But we do take this holistic, very involved approach, because we believe that if you can control the clutter in your life, that gives you more control over your entire life. If you're spending half an hour every day looking for your keys, I'd love to give you that time back so you can do something you want to do, where you can learn a new skill, a language, read a book, whatever it is. We have a lot of our clients who are moving from maybe that 5-bedroom colonial home to an apartment, even if it's not a assisted living or something where they're getting supplemental help, but just they don't want to maintain that monster anymore when it's just down to 2 people. Now, there's other people, though, that they're staying in that house. They're staying there forever. But we'll talk about things like, is there any need for you to go upstairs? If not, if that's just where the kids' rooms were, then maybe we make 1 or 2 of them into a guest room holidays, but we clear everything else out. So everything you need's on the first floor. We've now, we get rid of all of that clutter on those upper levels, and then they don't have to even think about them later. So, we're kind of looking at where they are and where they want to go. That's pretty much it. It's just trying to make sure that we're keeping people safe. We are supporting them in their need, whatever their need is. And, we're working with the therapist if there is one, or if there isn't one, and it seems like maybe they need one, that we can provide those referrals. But, we're trying to do it as efficiently and cleanly as we can and make sure that everybody's supported who needs to be. If we've come to a situation where it's an estate, we do a lot of estate work as well, both for executors and trustees that are out of state, out of the country. We ship things worldwide. But we use professionals to do things like determine what has value and what doesn't. So if there's items we think have value, we set those aside, and then we can bring in people that will take a look at them and let us know, yep, this is a really rare thing. No, this is from a airport souvenir shop. So yeah, we try to make sure that we help people maximize the value of the items that they are getting rid of, if that's of interest, or more importantly, if they want to donate, that they get the items donated to where they want them to go. So if they're an animal person, then we try to donate as much as possible to the animal shelter. If they want to support domestic violence sufferers, then we put things to the women's and family shelters and things like that, so that we can target in on their values. Because if you donate to people you believe in, you actually donate more. And that's more clutter coming out of your home, and it's doing things that are important to you. So that's all part of our system as well. So that's it. It's conquertheclutter.org. And at the end of this, if there's any questions that you have, feel free to email us or call us. We'll answer them for you.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for acknowledging that someone who may have quote unquote hoarding behavior, it doesn't define who they are in their entire life. It's just something that they're dealing with. It's just a challenge. We all have challenges. And I think that's why Maria is so good at what she does, because she recognizes these are people, these are successful, people who've lived full lives, and we all have struggles, and this just may be where theirs manifests. All right, Pete, would love for you to take a little bit of time to talk about the role that you play as a real estate broker, because I think it seems that the industry is changing a little bit, and people do specialize in a particular market with their expertise. And Pete has carved out a nice niche with his business. And tell a little bit about what that means, what that looks like.
Thank you, Cele. So I have actually been a real estate broker for 30 years. And so I am one of our clientele. 15 years ago, when my parents are going through transition, I was helping them a great deal and learned an awful lot over that time period about, not only, what happens real estate wise, but just how people think and the process of decluttering and getting rid of not my parents' possessions, but my great grandparents' possessions that were in my parents' basement. So it sparked an interest it sparked a more than an interest in specializing in helping older folks transition, work with estates, all of those things. And it also may sound counterintuitive for a real estate broker to be sponsoring two organizations that help people stay in their homes. But I have construction background. I want people to transition safely if they ever do. And at some point, unfortunately, most of us will transition, or as my parents did, they ended life in their home, which was great. Quality of life in the home was crucial, and I got involved in that process as well, which is why I ended up volunteering with two organizations who try to keep people in their homes. But also to make a point, AHA, about downsizing in general, AHA has approximately 40% of its members, and I could be wrong, this is a couple of years ago, who have downsized and are now aging in place in their second condo, townhouse, whatever it is. So it's an ongoing process, and it's hard to figure out exactly who needs to do what when. Everyone is different. So Steve, if I could get you to put up that first slide. I have downsized. A friend came to me one day as I was mowing the lawn and said, let's go fishing. And I said, I can't, I'm mowing the lawn. And they said, which is more important to you, mowing the lawn or doing something you really love? 1 year later, we sold our single family home and moved into a townhouse. Save some money on maintenance. That was, getting the time to go fishing was my important hot button. Steve, can you go ahead one more? So in my process and in watching all of these other professionals do things, all I want to say is that it looks like it looked to me, and it felt to me like everything in my house had one of 5 destinations: keep, give away to family and friends, sell, donate, discard. That's my observation. We have experts who can help you do more about that. Let's flip to the next one, please. We had a floor plan. We knew what townhouse we were moving into, and we had a floor plan. And before we began really emptying the other house, we found a destination for the things we wanted to keep in that floor plan. I think you could take a floor plan from any building and figure out what it is that you want to keep for the most part. All right, let's go one more. Okay, one of the biggest questions I get when someone has made the decision to downsize or an estate is, do I have to do a lot of work to upgrade my house, make it market ready? And the answer is no. There are 3 ways to sell a house. One of them is completely as is, even the contents. Those are the guys you see on morning television saying, we want to buy your house. And typically they're looking to offer 40 to 60% of market value. The second, clean, empty, the broken things fixed. That's where you get 80 to 95% of market value. The third way to sell a house, renovated to today's standards, and that's where you get the maximum the potential that a house has. Usually people choose number 2 and maybe paint, maybe upgrade some fixtures, not a lot of expense. That's almost always the best way. So it shouldn't deter someone who really feels like they want to downsize if they're not up to current market conditions, because number 2 is where we sell most homes. All right, last slide. So one of the things that we do is we take people on tours of condominiums, apartment buildings, senior communities, so that they can kind of see what that next life could be. A lot of people go ahead and make the decision to move. A lot of people say, no, I'm staying where I am, which is perfectly fine. We help with contents. Again, I think I've got in my head that there are 5 categories of contents, and then we recommend people such as our panelists. Once a house is ready for the real estate part, is we have a stable of vendors who can get it ready for the market. And the market is, we really have to get it ready for photographs, professional photographs, because that is how a lot of folks purchase these days. So we also have a couple of companies who will hold their bills until settlement. So a seller does not have to advance money or much money if they want to do some significant renovation. And then lastly, we get the house sold. And again, I've been doing that for 30 years and have a couple of plaques on the wall. How about that? So, again, we're just kind of a no pressure, long view of this process, and happy to help in any way we can.
Great. Thank you. Pete, that's a really great way that you laid it out to explain that, because some real estate agents probably say, you got to do this, you got to do that. And they overwhelm the person, then I can't ever sell. So, if you can show them how to do it in a simple way and bring trusted painters and electricians to the table, it just removes a major, major challenge. It's just one more thing keeping them in the house. So that's great. I had said that Lori James couldn't join us, and that was true. She had an emergency, but she very kindly, pro that she is, brought her associate to join us, and she has popped in since I did the first introduction. So I want to welcome Shannon Hildreth to our panel, playing the role of Lori James. So I will just let you, each panelist, Shannon has just done like a 5-minute overview. And so putting you on the spot here, but I'll just let you do that if you would, to talk about the work that A Rarity Auctions does.
Sure, not a problem. Thank you everyone for having me, and I could never fill Lori's shoes. Those are really big shoes to fill. But I can talk about the company as passionately as Lori does. We can help any client with any situation. There is nothing too big or too small that we can't handle. And we start from the beginning process to doing, you know, the decluttering and the tedious little paperwork and the linen closets and all that. And then we get into the other aspects where everybody says, you know, what can I do with my stuff? Where does it go? You know, I get a lot of clients who say, I'm just going to throw it all out. I'm done. And we say, no, wait, let's pause. And, you know, there are things that we can donate. There are things that we can auction for you. We have our own auction house. We have our teams that go out and work in the field. We have our trucks that, you know, will pull those big and small items out of there. The auction venue is a new adventure for us, and we're loving every minute of it. It's a super fun adventure. And, you know, the clients are enjoying it as well. We're as hands-on as the clients want us to be, or as hands-off as the clients want us to be. And being on the spot, I'm very sorry, I don't have everything prepared. So if anybody has any questions, that's pretty much us in a nutshell. Me personally, I've been with Lori for 8 years. I've seen every aspect of this business. I think I've even talked to Peter a couple times maybe through the years. So that's my less than 5-minute nutshell. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. Thank you for being here. And actually, yes, Jan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say at this point, you know, that's why, Shannon, we're going to have some questions now. But, and, you know, as I'm listening to everybody, it, you know, and I have my own parents who live in a 5-level house that they bought in 1959 and have everything still in it, at the mausoleum. But I think, you know, what I'm picking up here is, you know, some of us, you know, we don't want to face these things. There's a lot of reluctance to face these things. And we think about it as giving up, and we think about it as losing things. And what I pick up from hearing these professionals and the feeling of lightness and of clarity and of really not giving up, but increasing the quality of our lives right now. And I think that that is one of the most, you know, joyful reasons to work with any one of these people in concert to figure that out. Personally, I've worked with an organizer in some transitions for myself, and I never worked with anybody like that. You literally have them going through your closet, which is extremely an intimate experience. Like, they're looking through my stuff. It can be very disconcerting, but these folks are so attuned to that. And the outcome for me, I mean, literally organizing my sock drawers, I feel so much better. Like, you cannot imagine the power of that. So I just wanted to provide that testimonial, and then, you know, kind of launch in. If you don't mind, Cele, we got a question that I think can start this discussion, and that is, where do I start? Specifically, that question in the Q&A says, the process. Do you recommend starting with items like books or clothing, or spaces like the attic or a room? So I thought that might be a great launch to begin the discussion. And, you know, maybe we can go to our decluttering professionals, and maybe just, you know, raise your hand, Karen or Maria or Anna, and just.
I'll start it.
Yeah.
You know, that is a very, very common question. Even if someone typically either emails me or calls me, they'll say they want to organize, or they want to right size or stay size. I like your term, Jan, but they don't know where to start. And so we will talk for like about a half hour initially on the phone. And through questions, I will try to find out from them what is stressing them out the most. And, you know, is there some sort of deadline that they are having? Like, is there a party? Are they hosting family? Are they intending to move? So finding all that out, and through a series of questions, that it's sort of like calms them down in a way to see that, oh, they have time. And then I'll ask, well, what do you like to do? Where do you hang out the most? And then if they say, you know, their living room or something, because I like to read, or, well, how is that room? It's very cluttered. And then I will say, look, you are driving this, but I recommend we start there. So I do it through a series of questions, and I really believe that whether you work with an organizer or not, that you contemplate, why am I doing this? Have your why answer. Just like if you're losing weight, like, why do I want to lose weight? You know, why do I want to get organized? I am feeling, and what you spoke to, Jan, you do feel overwhelmed. And by letting go of some things, it is uplifting. And by looking at your drawers all like put together, it does lift you up. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let some other people jump in here, but I do think having a plan helps.
Having a plan, knowing where you're most stressed. Good. I think
Maria,
let's
and
go
then
to
Pete.
Maria and then Pete.
A lot of times people are so overwhelmed, they have no idea what's bugging them the most. So if I don't have any input along those lines, because I do a lot of questioning as well, I usually recommend that they start in the bedroom, because if we can get that cleared and calm, then when they go to bed, they tend to have better sleep. And when they wake up, they're less stressed because they're not looking at this pile of books about to fall over. They're not tripping over things on the way to the restroom. And that sets them off in a better place. And it makes the other areas of the house that aren't organized even more annoying. And when it's more annoying, they can figure out, okay, yeah, I really do want to work on the living room next. And it helps them have that momentum, because a lot of times people burn out. They'll do one area, and then they're like, oh, that was so exhausting. I don't want to do it anymore. But if we can get an area where they spend a lot of time calm, then the rest of it is more motivating later. So if you don't know where to start with the bedroom. And then you can move on from there, and just it starts your day off a little bit better. May even involve painting in there before you move on to other areas to get in a nice calm color or whatever, to get you set up and see your potential and the possibilities ahead of you for the rest of the house.
Pete, did you want to say something before we go on to the next
Just real
question?
quickly, where we started when we downsized was we started by putting all my remaining bachelor items out on the curb.
What were you still doing with those?
I hid them.
Great.
I put them away.
I think, I know Seal has some questions. Oh, Shannon, did you want to chime in?
I just had one thing. Karen has it was great because I'm the first line of defense. A lot of times I'm talking to the clients initially. And one question I often ask clients, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yep.
So I always tell them, start small. Don't try to tackle a whole space in one day. Start with one shelf on a bookcase. Start with one row of towels in that linen closet. And where is it weighing heavily on your heart that you need to work? That's the approach we usually take here. So thank you for letting me add that.
And I think, so it seems kind of easy to think about just sort of the stuff that accumulates, that's easy to kind of get rid of. But now I'm talking about heirlooms. We've got some questions, Seal. Am I jumping the gun, or do you want to launch into that?
No, it's okay. Why not tackle some of the delicate issues? And one of them is heirlooms, things that we have collected, and there are memories attached. If I may, I have an example. My husband's grandparents really wanted us to have those cherry end tables that they designated those to go to us. Well, then you imagine, like, how do I feel to get rid of those, right? They wanted us. They chose us. But we are finally at a point where we're gonna let them go. We haven't used them for 20 years. We've not really used them unless we We just really haven't used them. And
I know,
I
right?
think I'm my husband and I are both too sentimental for our own good. Right now, we're cleaning out his parents' home because we just moved them to assisted weeks ago. His sister is not sentimental at all. And I think I've determined that somewhere in the middle is probably the best way, not the way we are, and not certainly not Jane. She would have thrown the whole house away. But it is hard to find that sweet spot that makes you feel good and not have regrets later, yet feel freed yourself. So
But Cecile's bringing up a lot. I'm sure it's emblematic of what many in our audience are experiencing. I'm sure there's a lot of nodding if we could see everybody's heads, and questions that came in said, you know, I've inherited a bunch of stuff, or I have this stuff. I don't want it, or I do want it. And, you know, will family members be angry? How do I distribute it? Worth something. I mean, this is a whole, I know we could probably talk the whole rest of the time about it, but I think I want to launch into the professionals to address heirlooms. Where do we go? What do we?
Go ahead, Maria, take it away.
I don't care how you acquire something, whether it's through a will, you went shopping for it, you were given it as a gift by your best friend when you were 5. People can give you a gift, but what they cannot give you is an obligation. Okay? So just because someone willed something to you, you don't have to keep it. Just because somebody brought you something as a hostess gift or as an anniversary present, you don't have to keep it. And for a lot of people, just realizing that they've accepted an obligation more than they accepted the gift, that just can be very freeing. Okay. Now, how you dispose of that item is up to you. You can regift it potentially. You can offer it to another family member who might like it better than you. Just because it was left to you doesn't mean that somebody else wouldn't love it. But you cannot be forced to keep it. I had one lady who had 9 sets of china that she had been given by her family members over the years because she was the last girl. And I asked her, did she like any of them? And she said, no, they're all incredibly ugly. Okay. So why don't you go ahead and either sell them or donate them or do something with them? And she said, well, because if I do, when I get to the pearly gates, they're all going to be lined up and they're going to kick my tail when I get there. And I said, well, if that's how they are, then they're on the wrong side of the gate. So just run really fast past them. Okay. Because you can't force someone to keep somebody. You never give someone a gift with the idea of giving them a burden. You give them a gift because you think that they will like it. It fits them. You know, it's appropriate to go to them. Nobody wants to be the bully that forces you to have this item. So let it go. It's okay. All right. So remember, you can get a gift, but not an obligation. And then how you dispose of it is up to you. Regifting, donating, selling. I had one client who was given a bunch of china and he set it up on a rail fence and shot it with a shotgun and then turned the pieces into mosaics. I mean, you can do anything with it you want. It's yours. That includes destroying it if that's what you want to do. So just remember that.
Permission to not.
You don't have to keep it. And you can't have a family member say, oh, you are the one with the big house. You have to take all that stuff because it's family stuff. I live in an apartment. I can't possibly keep it, but we can't get rid of it. It's family stuff. No, if it comes to me, I can decide what to do with it.
Yeah, good.
If it's important to you, make room for it.
Let's hear from, I know that there's, you know, there's a value component to it. You know, you don't want to just throw something at Goodwill if it's worth something. So how do we figure that out before we get rid of, you know? Shannon?
I'll jump in on that. So a lot of conversations that we have because of the auction house now, we do explain to clients. Like I said, I get a lot of clients who say, I'm just going to throw it all away. I'm done. They don't understand the value of it. So one thing that we do is we do focus on picking out those items that have the value. We have both sides. We have those who don't understand the value, and then we have those who overvalue it. So there's a lot of back and forth conversations with different people about different things, you know, and saying, listen, your item, for those that are, my value's worth thousands of dollars. We say, it's only what the market's going to bear. And one of the conversations we say is, if it's that valuable to you, let's find a way for you to hang on to it. If you're willing to let it go, then let it go, and let it go to somebody who loves it. And that's what I find people feel better when they know that something is going to someone who's going to love it.
Mhm.
It's a great question. That's a great answer to that too. And did anybody else want to chime in? As I wanted to also say, we talked to a lot of you folks and a lot of estate folks and the auction houses, and our children and our grandchildren don't want this stuff.
Nope.
Millennials and the next generations do not want gold rimmed plates that they can't microwave, for instance. And antique pieces like Cele inherited. So and we did get a question about someone asking, how do you deal with children who might want something, but they can't take it now, or they won't make a decision? There's that. And there's kids who they just don't want the stuff. So how do we deal with that space too?
I just real briefly, I always advise clients in that scenario you just described to pick their favorites and set them aside for their adult kids that don't want them now, but maybe when they have their own place, or maybe down the line, they will want them. And, unless they are absolutely positively sure their kids have articulated, I don't, then it's to go the route of finding someone who does, an organization who does, or selling it.
I think that's the challenge, is finding a place for it. Like, is this worth going to the trouble of taking it to maybe I don't have enough for an estate sale or even to put in an auction. Shannon, would your auction take 5 items to add to another? I mean,
Yep.
Okay.
There
Okay.
are professionals. I have folks that I work with. So there are ways to dispose of. You don't have to have a full estate.
Okay. Okay.
Y-
That's very, very helpful. Maria?
Most of the auction houses will accept photographs. You can send them a photograph and say, is this something you're interested in?
Mhm.
And they'll tell you yes or no. And then they might come out and look at it first.
Okay.
But at least they can give you that, oh no, that's yard sale material. I'm not interested in that.
Okay.
In which case then we donate. I never recommend a yard sale ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's too much
Okay.
work for too little return. Always
Right,
either
right.
auction it, private buyer, or just donate it. You'll get more from the donation receipt.
Shannon, did you want to say something else to that point?
I did, just because getting into the auction side of it, we are willing to open accounts for small amounts. I had a lady who called and she said, I have 14 boxes of china that my great grandma gave to me through my grandma, through my mom, and I don't want them anymore. They're in the basement and nobody else wants them. She was like, don't want to throw them away. And I said, we'll take them. We brought them here, we sold them, and she got like $600. And she said, you know what? We're going to have a fun, play date with the kids or something. She goes, it's better than taking up the space in the basement. So we too will take pictures. A lot of times when I get somebody who calls and says, I have a secretary, will you take it? Send me a picture. I'll give you a rough estimate of what it's going to cost, what it's going to sell for. And then they can make a decision. But that's, some auction houses do not take a small amount. So advise that, anybody check around,
Okay.
ask questions, ask multiple people.
And I know that Replacements Limited does take china, but they don't offer that much money per piece, right? You might get $1 a plate or something like that. And you've got to haul it off to them, or
You got to ship it to
you got
them.
to ship it to them at your
And
expense, right?
Well, the thing is that they have this huge warehouse and they have to store all this stuff until somebody wants it.
Yeah, right.
So they're calculating how long it takes to turn over an average item. And if it takes a year that it's on their storage shelf, they're heating and air and all of that stuff for that space. So they offer about 10% of what a wholesale rate would be. for
Yeah,
that stuff. So
okay.
it's a tiny amount, and they'll charge you $50 for something, but they're only going to pay
Mhm.
50 cents to $1 for it.
Yeah, right. Okay. That's just the only other source I know where they may take certain patterns, and you won't make any money, but if the whole point feel good that it's going to someone who covets that pattern,
Mhm.
then that is a way to do it. But it does require some work.
Yeah.
Packing it up and taking it away. Okay. Since we're talking about China, can we talk about sterling? I have had people say it's never coming back. They'll just melt it down for the silver, and I have other people say not so quick. Certain hallmarks are valuable, but what do you say to someone who has a full set of sterling flatware and some services, and they're not really using it, but my goodness, you're not going to give that away? What's the best? Shannon, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll jump in. We just had a conversation yesterday in our office about this. The way we do it is we base it on the client. Some clients are like, I don't care, take it away. I'm done with it. It's not going to live in my life. And we do what we need to do with it. We have other clients who say, I really am just not comfortable with it being melted down. So we make every effort to sell everything that we can. And you are correct. Some hallmarks are better than others. Some pieces are better than others. I've seen tea sets sell for $2,200 on auction. We just had one a couple weeks ago that sold for $2,200. And if we had sent it off to Meltdown, we probably would have gotten maybe 1,000. So it just, you have to do your homework.
Okay, then we're
Couple
getting some
questions. Can
questions here.
I
Jane,
add?
you go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead with
Well,
the
there's a
question.
couple questions coming in to add to the sterling conversation. One's about consignment, which is a general term, but not just sterling. Here's the question, not just sterling. What about a full set of silver plate flatware in excellent condition?
We're all shaking our heads. Silver plate
Same
is
thing, yeah.
silver plate, unfortunately,
plate.
not as valuable.
So let's talk about, how about consignment as an option, consignment of our stuff?
We handle auction stuff. We don't do consignment. So when we take the items from individuals, we ask that they're ready to let it go. We do a non-reserve auction. And the other ladies and Peter might be able to respond to consignment.
Yeah, they're around, I mean, if it's clothing, it might depend again on what the consignment store is offering, clothing, high-end clothing and shoes and those kinds of things.
Some consignment shops are really, really detailed in what you have to do in order to consign it, when your pickup dates are, et cetera, because if they say pickup is Thursday from 2 to 4 and you show up at 4:30, you're going to be out in the dumpster looking for your item.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to pay really close attention which way the hanger has to face. Does it have to be recently dry cleaned, and do you have to prove it? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into different consignment shops.
Mhm.
So if you're going to go that route, get the rules in advance, know what you're getting into, and make sure that you're prepared to pick up and do all of that when you need to do it.
So
Also, a
I
lot of times they have rules on what items, like with clothing, they'll only accept winter clothes in this time frame. And if it's summer and they're not taking winter stuff yet, you may have to hold on to it, even though you're ready to let it go, for another couple of months before you can put it in. So if you're on a deadline, that makes a difference too.
I think that can speak to whatever you're trying to sell or consign, whatever you're trying to consign, find out the place, find out what they take, and find out when and all that kind of good stuff. Karen?
I was just going to, I totally agree with everything Maria said. I have encouraged clients, if they are interested in consigning clothes, to go with some of the online sources. If they are like mid-range clothes, not super designery, like low-end designers, as bad as that sounds, sorry, ThreadUp. And then there's some higher end companies where you can send your clothes to them and they give you a price. And that sometimes is an easier way to go than dealing with the going to the store and everything that Maria just explained.
Right. So Karen has just said It's an app, it's a website called Thread, Thred, up. And I've actually used it before. You simply ask for, oh, that's my husband. You simply ask for a bag to be sent to you, or a couple of bags, and you put the clothing into it and send it to ThredUp, postage paid. It's probably one of the easiest things you can do. And then through it, they'll sell your clothes for you. You get very little, and you can ask, you can just tell them they'll donate it if they don't sell it, or they'll. But I can tell you, I just requested a bag and they have a 6-month waiting list. So all these now, because during COVID, remember COVID? Remember how we've been in our houses for a whole year? We've been looking at our stuff. We've been trying to deal with this. All these places are booked up, and you can't give it. It's even harder to give it away because people have been just shedding. So it's hard to get through. I wrote a couple months ago one of my newsletters, which I'm also happy to send anybody, some of the resources in the Mount Vernon area, in addition to who's on the panel, another couple of consignment places. We haven't talked about some of the other specifics. A question came in about vinyl, your old records, that old Deep Purple album. How are you going to get rid of that? You know, how are we going to get rid of some of the specifics, electronics and things like that? Again, there are places that consign, or you can give them to. I know these folks on this panel know about many of those kinds of places if you can't auction them. So maybe.
Can you talk about it right now, somebody, where to get rid of your husband's albums? For those of us who still have that issue.
Sell albums.
What's
Well,
that?
Pete just put them right out on the street. That's what he did.
Seriously,
No,
I
but
really
you
want to
know,
know.
but
Where do we-
listen, record albums are a big deal right now. All you know, they've come back in vogue, and there are a couple places
Maybe
that will
certain
take your vinyl.
ones.
There's a place in Falls Church. I don't recall the name right now, but
Yes, it's right down the street. I live in Falls Church. It's right down the street.
gotcha.
Okay, I'm writing that down.
So there's some specifics. Let me look at another question here. Someone came, Margie said she read that Goodwill is asking for donations as they've waned a little bit since the beginning of the pandemic. So there's a response there. We had a question, I didn't want to forget about it. It's very specific for Pete, that someone wanted to talk about staging a house for sale. And maybe we switch gears just for a second. We definitely want to come back to this. It's a great conversation, but you know, here we are in that kind of throes of finalizing, you know, do we stage versus not staging? I guess that goes into it. But anyway, Pete, you might want to just tackle that.
Sounds good. Staging began a number of years ago as we started to see more and more homes being marketed online with photographs. And the photographs are really what had to look really good. So staging evolved initially as a kind of a concept to kind of put an empty house, fill it with furniture and make it look like it's lived in. It has kind of settled back a little bit from there. So we often will recommend people stage with a few things that they have, and then a lot of either fresh artwork. Let's say it's an empty house. We put a fair amount of artwork in it, just so that the rooms are not empty. Maybe a couch in the living room, maybe a blow-up mattress in the master to highlight, I say the master, the owner's suite, to highlight the you know, two big areas that are that appeal to people. But staging to some degree, I think, is crucial. If you have a totally empty house and there's not a towel bar with a towel on it in the bath, or a few things around the kitchen counter tastefully done, you do not show as well. So I would encourage somebody to go, number one, go online and look at photographs on realtor.com or, you know, my website, whatever. Look at photographs of houses and see which ones catch your eye. I think it's going to be the ones that are minimally staged, because they're not saying here's my taste, but they're saying this is how a room could be used, and the artwork gives it some color. So
I think, Pete, you know, it speaks to certainly you're in the beginning when you showed those different levels of getting value if you're looking to sell. And if you were to just walk out of your house and leave everything in there in the state that it might be in, that's probably the worst scenario on that grid. So you have to do some decluttering, even if you leave your own stuff in there. to clear spaces so that people can feel the spaciousness of your home.
Yes, and unfortunately, not everybody's furnishings are appropriate for staging, because the market these days is really looking for, more and more toward contemporary things. And if, the wing chair and things like that, they're not likely to like seeing in the photographs. So we've got to be very delicate about, what people's possessions are that we do use for staging and which ones we may want to supplement. We do bring in, we have an account with, gosh, just lost our name, but it's a place where we rent staging materials. We'll bring in a couch, we'll bring in a dining room table, we'll bring in something that if a house really screams for it. But I think the artwork is, something on the walls that is really tasteful is kind of the biggest thing I would recommend.
Very good. A lot of folks are asking, and maybe Steve can chime in, because I don't want to promise something we don't deliver, but we definitely want to make sure that all the participants in this group today receive the information and follow-up information for these panelists. So Steve, is that something we can send directly to all the registrants?
Yeah, I'll send those to you, the emails and names to you and Cele, and then you guys can follow up with folks. And I dropped everything in chat, all the contacts in chat as well.
That's great. And I know, because a lot of folks don't have the wherewithal, and it's okay. I don't want you to worry about trying to grab stuff out of chat and pull it somewhere else. So we will send it to you. So I've gotten a lot of questions from people about that. And one of my members was asking about just, how long does it take to get help? If you contact some of you now, are you guys really booked up? Where are you with being able to take clients and that type of thing?
I schedule about 2 weeks out.
I could usually come out and do an assessment within a couple of days, but the working appointment is going to be a couple of, a week to 2 weeks out. I don't recommend people do huge chunks of time on a working appointment. Like we do somewhere between 3 and 4 hours for most clients, and then do it once or twice a week, not every day unless they have a deadline, because decision-making is exhausting. And if you're really concentrating, your brain burns glucose at the same rate as if you're walking on a treadmill. So if you did that for 3 hours, you'd be pretty tired. They're going to be pretty tired at the end of 3 hours if they're making a lot of decisions. So space it out, which is why the earlier you start, the better. Even if you're not thinking about downsizing, it's a great time to purge your files. Call Karen and spend 6 months purging out your files. Then you don't have to do it later.
Shannon, could you address that question? I know in the town where my in-laws live, the estate sales folks were working, their backlog was about 6 or 7 weeks. How do you guys stand right now?
So for the front side of the business, the services side, we too are about 2 weeks out. I can usually have a consultation done within a couple of days. And once we, get rolling, and depending on how the client, we can pull stuff out, over time. On the auction side of it, for the selling, somebody said COVID, and I hate to say it, it backlogged us. So we do tell our clients it takes about 6 to 9 months to sell everything and get through the process. We're trying to find the right sale for the items and putting them in the proper sale. We also don't put everything all in one sale. We spread it over different weeks so that if we do have a bad week, that client's not losing out just because we had a bad week.
Shannon, does that mean that we have to hold on to our stuff until that auction comes, or can you go ahead and take it if we got to get out of our house?
No, absolutely
Can't live
not.
with this stuff anymore.
Out and it comes to our warehouse. We hold it here.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's super.
Great. That's a great clarification. So it's setting expectations for everybody here to hear this, that it can take.
Yeah, very
And what I
interesting.
heard with Maria saying, if you burn a lot of glucose, I think that we'll need to eat a lot of cake. Maybe, wine, that glucose. So cake and wine and decluttering. I think that's great. Hey, Pete, talk a little bit about where we are with real estate. It's insane right now with the selling market. Where are we? And, your kind of timeline here too.
So that's a great question, because we actually have what a lot of people in the industry refer to as a dual market. If you have a single family home, as a lot of our folks do, that market is very, very active. There are a lot of next generation folks who are accelerating their purchase. You know, may have lived in an apartment downtown and now they want to go right to the single family in the suburbs. Thank you, COVID, or maybe not so much COVID. But the duality of the market is that the single families is very much a seller's market. So anybody looking to sell a single family, this is a great time to do it. The duality is that it's not a seller's market in the condo realm. So it's actually a kind of a good alignment for anybody who's thinking of downsizing to a condominium, for example. Let's say a 2-bedroom condo instead of a big single family. They've got the best of both worlds. It's a seller's market for the house they're in. It's a buyer's market for the condo. There are a lot of senior living communities that have some vacancies as well. And I don't want to say it's a buyer's market there, but there are some vacancies. Let's just leave it at that in some of the senior communities. So just think about that. You know, I wrote something that was put in the AHA newspaper newsletter not long ago. You know, have the stars align for downsizing, and those are the two things I think make that answer maybe if someone is ready.
Right. And I think, you know, you have to temper that with, like you said, you know, oh, I got to hurry up and sell my house and take advantage of this market. But then you need to have a place to go that you want to go to. So it could be, hey, I don't need to be pressured by this market, and make the decision based on your best life. I think it really kind of comes down to that.
Pressure is not your friend. Someone said that, you know, we can do it if under pressure, but it's not your friend. You know, you want to really plan.
And as you can see that if you just were like, oh, I got to jump on this, it's still going to take time to clear your spaces. So, you know, take a deep breath about that. You know,
well, can I jump in if I may?
Yeah.
Excuse me, because we did get a lot of questions in advance, and I want to make sure that those people who took the time to do that get their questions answered. And a lot of them have to do with electronics. Can we just take a little bit of time to talk about which things have any kind of value, which just need to be chucked? Okay, obviously, if your appliance is broken, it's of no good. It's got to go. Okay, so I know the city has their whatever appliance drop off twice a week, Mondays and Saturdays, I think, right? Pete?
Yes.
At certain, you know.
Might be Tuesdays and Saturdays. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Off of Duke Street. You mean that one?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, by the way, if you are a member of a village, have a volunteer come and take heavy things off your plate. That's something that our volunteers can do. If you're worried about a heavy old school computer, you don't need to lift that thing and take it in your car. Our volunteers will do that. But obviously, if they're broken, yes, you got to chuck them and take them to the right place. What about things that maybe still have some value? We're trying to kind of repurpose, reuse. What things are worth? How about stereo equipment that works perfectly fine, turntables, except it's taking up space? What do you do with that stuff? Any value at all? Pawn shop? I don't know.
So we do sell electronics. The obvious ones, VCRs have no value, stuff like that. But your old stereo equipment, people are collecting that again. This millennial generation is starting to pick up on, you know, what we liked back then, and they want it. They want the bigger speakers, they want the turntable, they want the receivers. They're rebuilding. So it's my generation that's in the middle that's like, I don't want it. But it's the younger generation and the older generation. So there is value.
What other things might have value? Maria, I see your hand. I'm not going to leave you out here.
Karen did too.
What else?
Well, I do want to let you know that my hauling company that I was just working with told me that there are some of the major donation locations that have told them they're going to stop accepting DVDs even. They've already stopped VHS tapes, but DVDs and CDs are going to be going the way of the dodo as well. So if you have those and you want to sell them, now is the time, because they're going to have no value fairly soon. So just to kind of keep that in mind. And so if you love your DVDs, hold on to that DVD player because you won't be able to soon.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good
Karen?
point.
I will come back to my thought. I think you covered it, Maria.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Can I just say,
So,
related,
Excuse me, if I may, while we're staying on electronics just for a moment, I did have two specific questions. One was about, one is about a slide projector. Throw it away, haul it away, recycle it?
What I was going to, it just came to me. I find a lot of people have success also using Nextdoor and Facebook Marketplace to sell those kinds of things that you wouldn't necessarily auction. So I would try the slide projector in one of those options, either Nextdoor or Facebook Marketplace.
Okay, Maria?
First thing though, is if you have slides, put them on the wall, look at them, and then pull the ones that you like and get those digitized. Then
Right,
get rid of the
right.
slide projector.
Yes, indeed.
Okay,
Okay.
because you don't want to find yourself with a box of slides later, and then you're trying to look at them,
Right,
through the window.
right.
But go ahead and do that, and then Nextdoor is a great option.
Okay, any advice? This came from one of our members. It's a very specific item. Any advice on selling used CNC, computer numerically controlled equipment? This one is a tool gantry with a 3 1/4 router footer attached.
who knows what that is? What even is that?
CNC is construction type stuff, so carpentry. So
where would
specialty things like that you can go online. Usually there's interest groups for those types of equipment. So if they go to chats or Facebook groups or something that specialize in that activity, that's usually a place where they can list them. So for example, I'm a quilter. I have quilting groups I could go to and say, I've got this machine, I have this tool, I have this thing. Who would be interested? And if they're not, they'll find people who might be. So go to a specialty group for that kind of an item.
Okay, specialty group.
I also just wanted to mention there is an awesome electronic recycling website. It's called earth911.org.
Oh, I have heard of that.
And it's absolutely wonderful. And it's gotten more robust over the years, where if you're into composting or gardening, they have different pages as far as that. But if you have something specific to recycle, you put in the item, you put in your zip code, and it'll pop up where you can go to recycle it. So I use that a lot.
I'm putting in the chat the Falls Church recycling, and I wanted to say something that Maria mentioned was digitizing. Again, we could spend a whole session on digitizing things, because that could be a way. Take a picture of that precious item, you'll never forget it. Digitize your slides or photos. Has 400 photo albums.
8mm film.
Yeah, so, but how do you guys have those connections to digitizing companies, and what kinds of things can and should be digitized?
Yes, but always purge first. Because if you just say, I'm going to digitize all my photos, and you just drop them off, you're going to pay a ton of money for duplicates and things like that. Always pare it down first, then digitize. Just like you pare down your items and then buy the organizing equipment that will hold it properly. You don't buy the equipment first.
And I would just like to add that I find, like any category with memories, have a plan for what you want to do. I mean, and we all have a plethora of too many pictures and too many, do you want to make a book? There's all sorts of things that you can do. So I always try to let's sort it out before you dive in and start organizing them. And as Maria said, you'll find out you are going to want to digitize some, but digitize the gems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. That goes back to a question that came up very early that Cele, beforehand, about where do you start? And we answered that, but someone said, do I go ahead and buy the storage boxes? And you would say, absolutely not. first purge. Don't buy more places to put things before you get rid of them. So
You wind up with organizing equipment being clutter that you've got sitting around taking up
Then you've
space
got-
unused.
right, good.
So yeah, and also with your photos, when you get it digitized, label them just like you would label on the back, because it will not help if you're trying to give these photos as a historical thing to the family, because they're not going to know who these people are unless you put it on there. So don't forget, you're not done just when the digitizing's done.
So I just
Yeah.
want to build off what Maria just said with photos real quick. One thing that I often tell clients, they'll say, I don't know what to do with these photos. I don't want them anymore. And I often say, do you know who's in the photo? Because if you don't know who's in the photo, you can't pass them on to somebody because they're not going to know who's in the photo. So
Exactly.
that is one way to go through and purge.
Mhm.
And there are specialists for photos.
Mhm.
The APPA members specialize in helping people organize photos. So if you want somebody to do that, then they could usually digitize, or they know other people.
Mhm.
That's another category of specialty. So for example, if Karen and I are full and we're not taking, on that kind of right now, we can refer you to people who can do it. So don't assume that if it's not our main wheelhouse, that we're not going to be helpful to you, because we have tons of people we refer for different things. So use us as a resource for that too, not just for your organizational needs.
Good. I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, and we're getting down to the bottom of the hour.
Yeah, there is one question that that we did have come in advance. It's a little bit delicate. We can't solve this problem, but I think it's worth bringing up. When you live with someone who has a different mindset about keeping things than you do, how this is really hard. I mean, I've had many members say, "Oh, my wife needs to get rid of her stuff." Well, you can't get rid of her stuff. She's got to get rid of her own stuff. But are there any words of advice for these scenarios?
I think we all have been in those situations, and it's very awkward when you're hired by someone to work with the spouse that is the problem spouse. And right away, I will backpedal and I'll say, I would love to help when she wants to work with me or when he wants to work with me. But what I will always encourage is for the spouse that is trying to get organized and it's really, really important to him or her, or the partner rather, to emotionally describe why their partner's stuff, by feeling alone and organizing, how it would make them feel so much better if they could be doing it together, or if his or her stuff, if they could work on it. But I think you can't really force someone to do it. You can only, I have found success, and I have seen success working with two people when the person who's highly motivated gets down on the path and is so excited, it can be contagious that they end up sort of bringing in the other person in their own way. It might not be exactly the way as the super enthusiastic one, but it can happen.
And the thing is that what you can't do is don't get bitter and don't throw out their stuff, because what that does to the relationship is devastating. I had one gentleman who, when he got mad at his wife, would go into her craft room and pull one of her magazines and throw it away, just at random. He would just, and only one, it was just a little spiteful little thing that he did. But when she would find out, of course, that's not going to be good for the two of them to do anything together in the future. So the first thing I had to do is make him stop doing that. And that if he's mad at her, he has to talk about what he's mad at her about, not just get all petty like that. So I often talk about yours, mine, and ours. So your stuff is garbage. Okay, that's the husband's bachelor stuff, the stuff that belongs on the curb. My stuff is incredibly valuable. And then our stuff we can negotiate. The problem is that he's going to think that my stuff is garbage and his stuff is valuable. So he wants to keep all these little computer parts, and I want to keep all my quilting stuff. Well, we both know what's valuable within our own categories. So if we're both purging, he purges his, I purge mine, I may have to purge a larger percentage for a move or whatever than he does, but we both have to do our own stuff separately. Now we could each have our own organizer to help, or even the same one on different days. So it doesn't mean you can't have the help, but then you do the stuff that you both have together. And if you think about the fact that, yeah, he's going to say that my stuff is garbage, he's wrong. He's totally wrong, but he's going to think my stuff is garbage. I'm going to take care of it because if I let him have a hand in it, he's going to throw out the wrong stuff.
It's great. So there's a lot of, mediating and tenderness involved. So we've got a hard stop at 11:30. I don't see, we have another specific question, but I think what we want to do now is just maybe let everybody, the panelists, just give us 30-second, one more wrapping comment so that we can move through. Cele, is that okay? And then
That's fine. I think maybe it was we'll continue the conversation. We didn't talk about paperwork. We didn't talk about books. We couldn't cover it all today. We couldn't have if we wanted to, but there's lots obviously that we could discuss, and we'll keep the conversation open. But that sounds like a plan with to me, Jan. Just let everybody have a little.
And to thank everyone, I'll just thank everyone on behalf of Cele and I with the villages. Grateful for everyone to be here, grateful for the panelists and their wisdom, and so much we've learned, and we will get back to everyone with some resources. So let's just maybe start with Karen, and we'll roll through 30 seconds. What do we?
Well, thank you. This was, it was really fun. It's one of my favorite topics. I love it. And I feel like the advice I would give is make it fun, have a plan, make it fun, put on music that you like, set a timer if you're really reluctant to do it. But I find that can be helpful. So, and before you know it, if the timer goes off and it's 20 minutes, put another 20 minutes if you can do it. But you'll get it done one bite at a time, as Shannon said with the elephant reference. But good luck on your journey. And if you have any questions, just reach out.
Good, thanks, Shannon.
Again, thank you for letting me sit in on an emergency situation. The biggest thing that I can say is don't feel overwhelmed. There are great professionals out there who can help you in every aspect of this journey, and it is a journey. It's one step at a time. Take your time, move gently.
Thank you. Maria?
Start now. Even if you don't have a deadline, start now. There's going to be something you can purge, whether it's old paperwork or socks with holes or whatever it is. Start now. And remember that control of your items gives you freedom. The more control you have, the less stuff you have, the easier your life gets. I'm not saying go full minimalist, but just being able to have what you need, when you need it, the things you love the most is very freeing. So start now. Remember, gifts are not obligations, and there's always people who can help. And thanks again for coming.
Yeah, Pete?
I think with respect to real estate, I think, again, planning ahead is crucial. Occasionally there's an emergency and that doesn't allow you to plan ahead, but if you can plan ahead, a transition is always better when you have time to think about it. We often work with people for 3 or 4 years before they move. And again, unfortunately, the emergency comes. Those are not as easy as if you plan ahead. And even though, again, I'm happy to help anybody talk about construction, oversee contractors. What do I do to my house immediately or, over a course of 3 or 4 years in preparation.
Thanks, Pete. Cele?
Wow. Okay. We threw a lot in there. We filled up the hour and a half. I want to thank you all for sticking with us. I picked up a lot of tips, and I thank all of our panelists for taking the time to be with us today and sharing some great tips. And we will make sure that the link to the recording is given to everyone. I want to thank Steve for his great work in the background, and invite you again to check out the webinars that Pro Aging, that Steve's company does. They're just fantastic. And then I think what we're going to do, put everybody's contact. Oh, we'll send any follow-ups to everyone who came on the call. So you have the contact information for all of our panelists and a little leave behind from each of them.
Great.
If you feel inclined to just get out there and start. So happy
Thank you,
weekend, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks
Steve.
for joining us.
Thanks, Steve. Thank
See you
everybody.
later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.